Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Mr. Isan Gattman is a journalist from US. About 15 years ago, he started an investigation on organ harvest happening in China. And about 10 years ago, he published a book to report his investigation. In his book, we can find a lot of firm evidences about what really happened in China, including but not limited to labor camps, jails, military hospitals, and even ordinary hospitals. Could you give a brief introduction about how could you find the evidence of organ harvest in China?
Well, it depends on which period you're talking about. In the very beginning, I was writing a book about the conflict between the Chinese state and Falun Gong. And to me, that was nobody had written a good history. And I wanted to be the person who wrote that history because I lived in China, I'd seen Falun Gong persecution. I knew it was the number one issue in China. And in that case, what happened is I was interviewing some women who'd been in labor camp. And one of the women, well, she was describing things, a very appealing woman, a woman from the countryside, said, she'd gotten a medical exam. And I started asking her questions about this medical exam. And nothing she said made sense. I mean, they looked at her eyes for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just shining a light in her eyes, but they didn't test this. They didn't test this focus. They didn't test anything about actual eyesight. They were just interested in the tissues, the corneas. Okay? And to me, when I heard this, a chill went on my spine, especially because she didn't know what she was saying. In fact, she kept trying to move on. Why are you asking me about this stupid examinations? I'm trying to tell you about the guards and torture and my spiritual development, and you want to talk about this dumb examination. And she was getting kind of irritated with me, and I was just like, maybe this is real. Maybe this is real. And this was the first time I'd kind of discovered it. And I once I got interested, I couldn't let it go. Now what I do is something very different because China is much more aggressive in outside countries than they used to be. And they don't let people go so easily. In other words, Falun Gong had a terrible time. But the one thing was people could escape sometimes. Very few Uyghurs have made it over to America or Europe. And like 12. And this is it. And the rest are all in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, places like that. Those governments they play ball with China. They do what China wants. And so I have to go in secret to interview, as if I were a spy. So basically I get to be James Bond without the fun. Okay. But, this is what I do because there are people hiding out. And then the danger, of course, isn't really to me, it's to them. Because if they're caught talking to me, the consequences can be deadly. And they can be sent back, and they can be harvested or whatever. They can be just tortured to death. All kinds of things are possible. Or they'll be forced labor. So, and that is true for people I work with as well. Translators, fixers, these kinds of people. They take huge risks. And I've often said, if I get thrown in prison for a night, no big deal. I sell a lot of books. If they get thrown in prison, it won't be a night. It might be the rest of their lives, if they're lucky. It's what I worry about now is the danger of the investigation itself, because China is so aggressive. It's a very different world. And it used to be I could go around and talk to Falun Gong practitioners, and maybe there'd be some trouble, but usually not. I could go to Thailand. Went to Hong Kong, of course. Certainly Taiwan, no problems, nothing, anywhere. Now it's different. Things have changed. But the cause stays the same. It is always the same. We have to bring justice. The Chinese Communist Party has to pay for what it's done. It has to be held accountable. It has to make reparations to families. this is the end. This is the end result. Zelensky says the end result of this war is going to be Crimea. The end result here is reparations and the end of the Chinese Communist Party because they cannot explain what they're doing.
Okay. So, what has been done in U.S. to stop illegal organ transplantation?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that because I think you're probably aware that over just the last 10 days, we've seen significant movement in Congress. The organ harvesting, stop organ harvesting bill has essentially been marked up. That means it's going to get voted on. That means it's probably going to pass. That is the end of the debate politically in the United States. This is incredible progress. At the same time, we have, and this is amazing too, we have the International Society of Heart and Lung Transplantation Doctors who have come together and decided that China can no longer write for their journal. No Chinese surgeon, transplant surgeon, can write for their journal. That's a huge shift. And they've invited me to speak at their annual conference, in a very nice spot, right in the first day. And they know what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say, you should make up with it. Maybe the Chinese have reformed. I'm not going to say that. This is remarkable. This is revolutionary. And to have those two things happen at the same time, the political move and a rebellion within the medical world against the engagement policy, if you want to put it nicely, with China, or the appeasement policy with China, is I think more appropriate to call it. It's a new world. It's a new day. It's taken a long time, but it's here.
Yeah, from the beginning, maybe more than 15 years, it has taken.
It's true. It's incredibly slow. As somebody who's worked on it, I apologize to all the victims. I mean, I've done some good work, but there have also times when I spend a lot of time making a sandwich in the kitchen. I mean, look, I don't know what to make of that. Things take longer often than they should, much longer. It's tough to witness how long it's taken. Having said that, China did this to themselves. Nobody would be moving right now if they hadn't lied about COVID. I mean, this just wouldn't be happening. That is the breaking point. It's the breaking point for the medical world. It's the breaking point for the political world. Everyone knows China lied about COVID, and people died. I mean, it's that simple. The only entity which doesn't know it is the World Health Organization, which is really in China's pocket. But that's where we're at. Now, as for the victims, this is something that's up to the people of China, and I mean including all the minorities, to figure out how to handle this. They have to sift through the bones. They have to try to find the missing people. This is a terrible process of reconstruction.
In the past 20 years, many Japanese people went to China to change their organs. And what do you think about this?
I think Japan, I'm hoping this will change soon, but I think Japan has been stuck in denial about this. They have this tendency to latch on to, certain individuals who are maybe guilty of something, and that becomes the whole problem. It's not the whole problem. Okay, this is a systemic problem. They have looked the other way. The China-Japan Friendship Hospital is notorious. It is a place where people go to get Falun Gong and Uyghur organs. That's what it is. Okay, maybe Tibetan organs too, maybe some house Christians, but whatever. Maybe a prisoner's organs, but the point is that's where they go. And everyone knows it. The nurses speak very good Japanese. Apparently the sushi's pretty good there. This is not something that Japan should be ignoring. First of all, but not just that, they should be looking into their own connections with the medical world transplant in China. And I know there's a lot of financial connections. I know a lot of products get sold in China. But that's true in America too, and we're starting to do something about that. That was true in Britain, but look at the progress the UK's made over this year in terms of banning organ tourism and in terms of starting to cut off those connections. Look at Canada. Canada. Because usually, it's completely subservient to China, especially coming from a business platform, which was always to beat the Americans by not being a nuisance, okay? The ones who didn't cause a fuss. Really, Japan is way behind the ball on this and really needs to catch up there.
Thank you so much.